Okay, well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's session, Cato CASB webinar, Unmasking SaaS and AI Blind Spots. My name is Philip Wally from Cato's product marketing team, and today I'm going to be joined by my colleague, Aran Shavit, product line manager here at Cato. Together, we're going to take you through one of the fastest growing areas of risk in enterprise security today, SaaS and Gen AI usage. Now, before we get this started, a few quick housekeeping notes. This session is being recorded, and we'll share the recording with you afterwards. As questions come up, please use the Q&A panel. We'll address them live during the Q&A portion at the end of the webinar. And we've included related content under the Resources tab for your reference. Our goal in this session is simple. Show you where the risks are hiding, why TLS inspection is important for CASB success, and most importantly, how you can start taking action today without adding new tools or creating complexity. We're going to talk real world use cases, give you a live look at CASB in action, and close with clear next steps you can take with Cato. So with that, let's take a look at the agenda so you know where we are headed. And all righty. So we'll start with why this matters now, the trends around SaaS and Gen AI adoption, and the visibility gaps that they're creating. Then we'll take a look at the business risk landscape across industries, because while every organization could benefit from CASB, the risks show up differently in different verticals: finance, manufacturing, healthcare. From there, we'll dive into Cato CASB in action, from how to get started with visibility, safe TLS inspection, and into real world outcomes, including the live demos. Those are kind of spread throughout. We'll also share a customer story so that you can hear what this looks like in practice. And then we'll talk about what happens beyond the first policy, how you can expand CASB value with app rationalization, role-based controls, data auditing, etc. And finally, we'll close with live Q&A and next steps, including how you can use Cato CASB in your own environment. All right. Now, why does this matter now? Well, across industries, SaaS adoption and now Gen AI are growing faster than IT oversight can adapt. Employees spin up new tools instantly, often outside of security or compliance review. That speed creates risks that are easy to miss until they become a problem. Now, industry research shows that 97% of cloud applications used in enterprises are shadow IT. They've never been reviewed or approved by IT. And then 40% of organizations reported a cloud-related data breach in just the past year. 8 in 10 employees openly admit to using SaaS at work without IT approval. That doesn't sound great. And the financial impact is significant. The average breach cost 4.3 million, saw a recent number that has ticked up to 4.4 million, and that's not including regulatory fines, reputational damage, or the drain on IT teams that are responding after the fact. Now, from our work with customers and what we've seen in the market, there are three themes that consistently rise to the top when it comes to CASB. The first is compliance and governance. Unapproved SaaS and now Gen AI tools can create hidden audit gaps and real compliance risk. Next is intellectual property protection. We see sensitive data, including design files and R&D information, being uploaded into unsanctioned apps or AI platforms without oversight. That creates real exposure. And last, BYOD and workforce expansion. Unmanaged devices and personal accounts expand the risk even further, making it harder for IT to maintain visibility and control. So while every organization has its own priorities, these three areas are where CASB is delivering fast impact today. So let's use finance as an example, if you will. And in this, CASB is often driven by compliance. The risk typically fall into two areas: the use of unapproved tools or uncontrolled data movement across SaaS apps. Now, both of these create gaps that can undermine audit readiness and expose sensitive financial information. The solution is visibility and control. CASB provides application discovery and risk scoring, and from there, contextual policies that can be applied by department, device, etc. So, we're going to pause right here and take a look at a demo. Iran, take it away.
Absolutely, Philip. Thank you. So we've just talked about the challenge of unapproved tools and uncontrolled data movement in finance. And that's exactly what I'd like to show you within this quick demo. So in this example, we'll be looking at Gen AI tools, not because AI is trendy and cool these days, but because this is a great example of a real life use cases of how quickly new applications are being adopted in an organization, and often without approval. And what I like to focus on is mainly visibility. Discover which applications are being used, who's using them, and whether sensitive data is being shared or not. But not just identifying those apps by themselves, but also understand what type of nature and content is being used within those applications. And as we can see here in this demo, we've been going through the Gen AI dashboard, going through the different applications that were detected by the Cato engines based on inline and API traffic. And with this dashboard, you're able to slice and dice the data by different verticals, sources, and dynamic filters to get specifically to the type of applications that you would like to focus on and the type of data that you need to investigate. In this example, we can see how we've been using the dashboard to specifically focus and pinpoint specific generative AI applications, and use the filters not only to understand what type of data violations were occurring on them, but also to navigate to different screens within the Cato management application. In this example, we're going through the application catalog in order to get much more information about a specific application, its risk and compliance. And on top of everything, the Cato CASB solution allows you to classify applications. So Philip mentioned shadow IT and how that becomes a real life problem for organizations. And with the Cato CASB solution, you can, first of all, identify all of these applications. And second of all, you can then use the platform to classify those applications and identify between sanctioned and unsanctioned applications. Back to you, Philip.
All right, thank you very much. So for our next, let's start with a quick pulse check to see where you are on the CASB journey. One more click there. As some of you may already be running, there we go. Some of you may already be running CASB in production today. Others may have it enabled, but haven't configured policies yet. Some of you may be using it without TLS inspection activated. Others are still in the evaluation stage. And some of you just weren't even aware that it's available to use. This may be your first time looking at how you can activate it inside your environment. Take a moment to select the option that best fits. It's always helpful to see the spread across everyone, and yeah, just how you're all using it. So thank you very much for that. We'd love to see kind of where everyone is. I'll give it just another second here before we move on. All right. All right. Now, we will keep going on. Now, let's take a look. Now that we've looked at the risk and how they surface across a couple of little industries and where that shows up, let's shift gears into what CASB looks like in action. We'll start with the basics: how to get visibility, what role TLS inspection plays, and how customers typically build confidence in first steps to full control. Then we're going to look at another real world example. And then there's also one more demo in there. But before we get going, it's going to start with TLS inspection and why that's important. So Cato, many organizations are not out there running TLS inspection. The problem there is that 90% of the internet traffic out there is seen to be inspected. So if you are not looking or doing TLS inspection, you have 100% visibility on about 10% of your traffic. This is not a good thing. And with that, Cato came out with Safe TLS Inspection. Cato Safe TLS Inspection is a first to market solution aimed at resolving the complexity and risk of inspecting encrypted traffic. Cato Safe TLS Inspection leverages automated data-driven approach using real-time traffic data to selectively inspect only applications and domains that are safe to inspect. Doesn't that sound nice? By bypassing unnecessary inspection, this approach minimizes disruption, ensuring both security and a seamless user experience. With Safe TLS inspection, enabling traffic inspection within the Cato SASE cloud has never been easier. With just a few clicks, that intuitive best practice wizard guides the administrator through the setup, streamlining the whole process. In less than a minute, you can raise the security defense of your organization by inspecting thousands of applications and domains without the risk of impacting that user experience or incurring compliance issues. Furthermore, Cato Safe TLS inspection eliminates operational overhead of continuous manual bypass lists. We all know that's not fun. This reduces maintenance demands and frees up IT resources, allowing the team to focus on higher priority tasks. And one more important thing to point out, I do want to make sure to point out here, because we're talking about CASB, we're talking inline CASB, TLS inspection. It's an important thing to note out that out of band CASB, that's via API integration with sanctioned SaaS applications. This is also included as part of your CASB license, which means you have access to both inline and out of band options. Now, out of band does not require TLS inspection because you are simply just going and looking at stuff at rest, but it's making sure important to point that out. There is a little bit of confusion in the market. So you can get that instant visibility into tools like 365 or Google Workspace without turning anything else on. And with that, I think we'll get into another example. This one is going to be more around manufacturing. The risks are tied to sensitive data and connected devices. On one side, confidential information like R&D or design data is often shared or uploaded into cloud services. Makes sense with manufacturing, right? On the other, the rapid growth of IoT expands the attack surface, making visibility even more important. Manufacturing, there's so much going on in IoT, the expansion there, everybody's dealing with it. CASB helps address both challenges here. Inline inspection and tenant-aware policies allow teams to restrict high-risk behavior like blocking sensitive uploads in R&D while still allowing flexibility in less sensitive functions. And now, Aran, will you show how these policies are enforced with practice and how Safe TLSI enables safe inspection? Let's take a look at what this looks like.
Yeah, I'd love to, Philip. So, yeah, guys, this is a super common challenge that we hear from our customers. Think about those engineer or contractors uploading sensitive information like design files or PII to the wrong place, sometimes not even intentionally, just using a personal Dropbox or the wrong company box tenant. Now, what I'll show you guys today is how we can not only control which applications can be accessed, but go one level deeper and control which tenants of those applications are allowed. So, for example, we can allow access to a corporate SharePoint environment, but block all others. That way, even if the app is the same, we make sure the data only follows through approved sanctioned channels. Let's take a look. Now, in this example, we're going through the Cato management application directly through the application and data control policies. And this is where you would manage your entire app and data posture within the Cato management application. In this example, you can see how granular and dynamic the policy can get. And with this example, we saw how a data control rule can specifically tackle how medical information can be prevented from leaking out through different SaaS applications. Now, in this example, we're going to use a recently delivered capability, which is tenant awareness that we recently launched for both application and data control policies. And with that, we're going to create a tenant-aware policy for ChatGPT. In this example, we're going to, first of all, create a rule that allows access to the corporate sanctioned tenant. And then we're going to create an additional rule to block any other access by any other non-corporate tenant. That type of granularity on different SaaS applications, and in this example, we're looking at a generative AI application, but this capability is spread across multiple SaaS applications. And that type of granularity allows you to define and fine tune your policies without by it, so you can reduce the attack surface to the bare minimum needed, but also provide that same type of flexibility to your employees while doing so. And right after that, we're going to shift into an actual example and take a look on how the user experience looks like in a real life scenario. Now, as you can see here, we have multiple tenants, multiple screens opened up. We have on the left side, we have ChatGPT with the Cato corporate tenant. And you can see I'm able to start a new conversation with the chat. Everything works as expected. But once I type into the private Gmail tenant over ChatGPT, I'm getting blocked. And on top of that, I'm getting the user education notification from the Cato client that notifies me that something went wrong. So me as the end user, I know what happened. And also you as an admin, you can customize the messaging to the end user to properly explain and guide the admin of what are the right corporate policy and what they need to do and avoid these types of mistakes. Another example that I would like to show you guys is with the data control rule and the same concept of restricting or reducing attack surface to another generative AI application. As you saw before, you can specify a specific application, but you can also have a much broader type of rule to cover all generative AI applications. In this example, we selected Gemini, and we also selected a specific data profile to match on credit card numbers. And once we have that right within our policy, we'll shift back to our Gemini browser and see a live example of how that would that look like. So I'm going to ask Gemini what would this specific file contains and whether it contains sensitive information like credit card numbers. And once I upload the file, you will see that while it's being processed, then behind the scenes, what happens, the file is being uploaded to the Cato cloud, is being extracted from content, the content is being matched with different data types and classification engines that we have, from regular expression, OCR capabilities for extracting data out of images, but also machine learning capabilities that we have to detect different types of predefined data formats. And as you can see here, this was blocked from accessing. But now that I try to upload the exact same file to ChatGPT, which I don't have a rule, the file is being properly uploaded, and I'm able to get the data out of it and properly continue my work with the corporate sanctioned corporate tenant. Now we're going to go back to the dashboard to see, well, we got the hit, so the policy worked, but now back to the platform. As an admin, what type of information can you get? So going back to the generative AI dashboard, you can see here at the bottom section under data protection that a new policy violation was met. And now you can gain a better understanding of what was the rule name, what was the file name that was matched on it, who is the user running that action, and then you can get through the events much more information on additional parameters out of that specific action. Philip, back to you.
All right, fantastic. Great demonstration. Really appreciate that. Gen AI, everybody's dealing with it. It's good to see how Cato can already help out there. So, for our next little bit here, I'm going to ask you another poll question. I'd like to understand your awareness of Cato's CASB over API capabilities. This is something a lot of customers don't realize they already have access to, and your input helps us shape how we better support you. So, while this is kind of going in, take a look over this. I mentioned this to you earlier, but as a reminder, CASB over API is included with your CASB license and it doesn't require a TLS inspection, right? That's a fast way to gain visibility and control over those sanctioned apps like 365 and Google Workspace, those things I mentioned, and, Salesforce or something like that. It and because it also works with unmanaged users like contractors, excuse me, it's often one of the easiest entry points into CASB, right? You're just looking at files at rest. Fantastic. So thank you very much for weighing in. I'm going to use this feedback to help guide future sessions and resources. So for now, let's continue by looking at how customers are putting CASB to work in their environments. So I've been talking about CASB in terms of visibility, control, and how safe TLSI helps customers overcome common hurdles. But who cares what I say? The real proof is always in the customer experience. One organization that's been on this journey is Hoffel, a global leader in hardware and electronic access solutions. I'm pretty sure I did not say that correctly. They are looking for a way to strengthen governance over SaaS applications, protecting sensitive business data, and do it without adding complexity for their IT teams. So with that, here is Rayner, and he's here to share firsthand what his rollout of Cato CASB has looked like.
So I'm Rainer. I'm working for Havli. I've been working for Havli for the past 9 years in the network team, basically taking care of all network needs at Havli, projects, the running network support, together with a global team of 12 people now. Havli is primarily a company that trades in furniture fittings, electronic lock systems, and also lighting systems. We are active all around the world in about 40 countries. We have about 140 locations with, I think it's 8,500 employees now, and revenue of close to 2 billion euros per year. Cato was our first CASB solution. Before that, we used the standard firewalls and proxy solutions, which didn't have the possibility to do the things that you can do with CASB. It enables us to finally and smoothly kind of manage the access to certain resources. It gives us a great amount of control, which we did not have. Main focus was on visibility and on fine granular control of access rights and basically enforcement of certain company policies. CASB, we're primarily using it for access to SharePoint and other data exchange sites because we have the very strict policies that disallows the use of any such site. But then we have certain suppliers that we want to share data with. So basically, we are enabling share points of different suppliers. We are doing some inspection of AI sites. We are doing that for, I believe, attachments from Gmail or other email providers. So basically, we built some exceptions for our global very strict policies with CASB. No other solution that would allow us to do that granular kind of access, basically allow certain sites and certain kind of downloads from those sites. Depending on your location where you are and depending on your local regulations, it might even be necessary to have a solution like that in place to fulfill certain government requirements. I'm thinking about the AI regulations in Germany and Europe, where you have to check the usage of AI. Basically, that's something you need. It's definitely a technology you want to look into because it's basically one of the future products that will become very relevant for you.
So now this is going to be our next section. This one's very special for everyone. We're going to cover some Cato roadmap features and functions that we don't offer today, but we are building toward. I want to make sure and get this disclaimer out there. As with anything like this, I want to make sure we're upfront that what you're seeing should not be taken as a promise or a guarantee, and you shouldn't rely on this for purchase decisions. Timelines and priorities sometimes shift, and we can't make a guarantee on when these will be released. But with that said, what we are talking about are things that we expect to have available within the next quarter or two. These are not everything we're working on, just a few items that we thought you might be interested in learning about. And with that, I will hand it over. Iran, if you will take it from here, please. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Philip. Awesome. So the first item that I would like to focus on is a total UI revamp that we're currently working on around application visibility and application control. So up until now, you're probably aware of the existing Cloud Apps dashboard that recently delivered earlier this year, the generative AI dashboard that we saw in today's demo. And we wanted to kind of keep the momentum in that direction and revamp the whole experience around application visibility and application control. And with that, we're working these days on two main new screens. The first one is the application overview, which is basically a general overview of all applications or all SaaS applications that we see throughout the Cato SaaS Cloud, and with a lot of detailed information on those applications. For example, whether they are being TLS inspected or not. Today we'll learn that this is a critical component to securing your SaaS apps. In addition to that, you can understand which tenants are being used, which users are leveraging those applications, accessing, trying out new shiny generative AI applications. So that would be your go-to dashboard. But in addition to that, we're also working on the application inventory, which is basically the entire list of all applications, but with additional information such as what's the actual usage, how many users, what's the throughput, upload, download, how many tenants are being used. And from that workbench, you would be able to classify those applications, applying sanctioned, unsanctioned, and additional classification methods on those applications. So you would get that same type of flexibility and full visibility to all of the applications that Cato was able to identify, both inline and API. Let's move on to the next one. So back again. Awesome, thank you. So in addition to that, we're not only focusing on those applications, SaaS apps, we're extending those in one step deeper into connected SaaS plugins as well. So I think this is a great example to the recently announced or discovered Salesforce drift incident that I believe that most of you at least heard about. So this is an example how in today's evolving ecosystem of applications being integrated into other applications and generative AI and agentic AI are starting to spread out, this type of visibility into what applications are being used is simply not enough. And this is another component that is only available via API. So with API integration into those applications, Cato is able to extract the specific plugins that are integrated into those applications. But not only that, we can also see which user connected those plugins and with what set of permissions, whether it's only read, write, whether those permissions are risky and can expose potential risk. So this is another component that we're working on and will be available as part of the CASB license. Now, on top of that, we're extending to autonomous CASB. So I believe that most of you guys have already seen earlier this year that Cato released the autonomous AI insights for firewall policies for both the internet and WAN firewall policies. So we are doubling down on autonomous policies because we understand that the value that we can provide as part of the platform to you with those autonomous insights that we can provide out of the box for our customers. And one example that I wanted to share with you today, we talked about tenant awareness, and we talked about the type of policies that needs to be configured in order to control access. But what if the platform out of the box, without configure anything, could hint you or could provide insights to what can proactively be configured only by Cato being configured in line, inspecting that traffic, and can provide these types of insights. So in this example, we have Microsoft Office 365, and we saw access to that same application from 4 different tenants. One is the corporate tenant, which is probably the only one allowed, but then other 3 tenants were also accessed through that same application. So this is where the power of the platform and the power of gaining full visibility to everything that goes through the cloud comes into play in real life use cases, and Cato will be able to provide you those type of digestible, actionable insights. And the only thing that you will need to do is click a flip on a toggle, apply those, and reduce attack surface. And lastly, what I wanted to highlight today is another highly expected item, which is much more granularity and flexibility into user education templates. So today, both block prompt pages for firewall are customizable, but they're a single purpose. Now, today, we're working on extending that to create multiple templates to then apply those and assign those to specific rules for different use cases. So that could fit your CASB rules, DLP rules, internet firewall rules, and extend not only to web, but also to the Cato client notification, to the end user notification that we saw during the demo. So this is another thing that we're currently working on and planning to deliver ASAP. Back to you, Philip.
All right. That is awesome. Some really good stuff coming up here. Very exciting. So moving into our next bit, we've got one more poll here for you. If we can get that up, here we go. For this next one, we'd like to hear about what kind of support you would help you move forward with your CASB inside of your environment. Some of you may want a deeper walkthrough of use cases tailored to your business. Others might find value in almost like a policy starter pack, something that's based on your existing traffic and applications to help get you going. It also could be about clarity, understanding exactly what you'd gain compared to what you already have in place today, or maybe it's more hands-on, a one-to-one working session to configure your first policies. So go ahead, start picking some choices out there. I'll give you a few seconds. This is great information. Thank you very much. I see so much activity going on there with the polls. We appreciate everyone and your feedback. Okay. So we are coming on into what is next steps, what you can do next. So let's take a moment to recap before we move forward. We started with why CASB matters now. SaaS and Gen AI adoption are expanding faster than governance, creating blind spots in encrypted traffic. And we then looked at the common challenges across industry, and then we showed how CASB addresses those risks with app visibility and risk scoring, safe TLS to kind of give you that confidence in enforcement, and context aware policies that align security with how your business is actually functioning or how things work. And last question, I swear, and this is the easiest one, is would you like to try Cato CASB? Just very simply, I'm gonna give you a couple of seconds. Yes, you want to try it. No, you're not ready right there. You want a little more information or something, but very easily, do you want to give it a try? Do you want some more information? And we will make sure to reach back to you. Thank you, man. I see a lot of yeses. I'm liking yeses. Y'all are my kind of people. All right, getting a couple more of those yeses in. All right, let's keep on moving. All right, so now, before we jump into the live Q&A, I'd love your quick feedback. Please take a moment to fill out the short survey link using the link at the bottom of the right of your screen. It should take less than a minute. Yep, there it is. Yep, share your feedback. Got that little button there. Click that. We appreciate that. It helps us help you. And with that, we're going to take our last few minutes and we want to get to those questions. I saw a lot of them coming in. There's some great ones for us to cover. We've covered a lot during this session. Why CASB matters, common risk, safe TLSI, contextual policies, Gen AI, lots to get to. If there's things you'd like us to expand on or a specific scenario to your environment, this is a great time to ask us. Ask in the chat. We will be answering as they come in. And I see we have some stuff in the Q&A already that we will go ahead and get to. So Ron, if we could get to this, I'll kind of take this part and ask the questions. And if you could help me with these answers. Our top voted question is an interesting one from Craig, and this is an out of interest. Why do we require to enable app control when only wanting to implement file blocking policies? Given app data and file are three separate types of policy, and the fact of having to enable app control enables the app policy type. We had a lot of votes for that one. Can you help us with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Craig, that's a great question. The reason being is that the Cato file control is simply part of the Cato single pass engine. And talking about the single pass engine, the space engine, basically all policies are being evaluated simultaneously. And specifically talking about these types of file control, these are technically part of the CASB engine. And that's the reason they are hosted within the same page, the same screen within the Cato management application. And this is why they're basically controlled by the same toggle. But that being said, once the toggle is flipped, you can only create file control policy and control that within that screen. So I hope that answered the question and provides some more sense into that. And if that's not the case, I highly recommend going through the knowledge base article where there is an article talking about single pass engine and understanding it in SASE. And I believe that this would shed some more light into that. So I highly recommend it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. So our next most voted one is in the context of CASB policies, when a file containing credit or debit card details is uploaded or downloaded, it is successfully blocked as expected. However, when the same type of sensitive data is sent as a message, example in Teams, it's not restricted or blocked. Why does CASB not block or restrict sensitive data shared via messages? And is this expected behavior? Shriyas,
So
thank you.
yeah, thank you for that question. So in order to control fileless or actual messages, content shared into SaaS applications, this is where our DLP engine comes into play, and CASB will probably not be able to detect that. And this is where we combine our DLP extraction engine to extract the content out of the actual SaaS activity, like upload, texting, and so on and so forth. And this is where we match the content against our policy. And this is how you get those types of controls with the DLP engine. I hope that answered the question.
Fantastic. Donna, all right, here's our TLS inspection that where everyone's asking. Is TLS inspection required to allow block generative AI category as well as chat GPT, Gemini, et cetera, specifically per tenant?
Yes, it's a simple answer, yes. The reason for that being that with TLS inspection, let me get a step back. To get visibility into the tenant over inline traffic, we need to go and perform deep packet inspection and dig in within the HTTP response and request and response. And to do that, TLS inspection must be enabled on the tenant in order to extract the tenant field out of the communication between the user and the application. So that's a long answer. Simply say yes, it's a must.
Yeah, and just I'm gonna piggyback on this because we had another one from Joel here. Talk about, there was a time when more traffic was HTTP, not HTTPS, and as we've noted, that's turned around, right? 90% of it or more is all encrypted. But so doing TLS inspection brings its own problems with certificate pinning, is what he says. We end up possibly bypassing more traffic than we inspect. What are other companies or the industry in general doing here to secure traffic without causing issues? Cert
So
pinning is a tough one.
cert pinning is definitely a tough one. So in Cato, we understand that is a pain point for everyone. And we have multiple ways that we try to make that pain less painful. One is that in Cato Research, a security research group, by default, every time a new application is being added to the catalog, we're analyzing whether this application on its various formats and various either operating system clients and so on and so forth, whether that introduces certificate pinning. If that's the case, we bypass it by default for our customers. So that would fall for most applications that are being added to the platform. So that's layer one. The second layer is what Philip alluded to earlier in the session when we talked about safe TLS inspection. Safe TLS inspection is a data-driven AI mechanism that looks at your traffic, tries to analyze what traffic would break once TLS inspection is enabled from various reasons. Certificate pinging is one of them, but could be other reasons as well. And Cater automatically recommends those applications to be bypassed. So the whole concept of safe TLS inspection is to, first of all, bypass everything that we're not 100% sure that will work with TLS inspection, and then only inspect those that were vetted by Cato to operate after inspection. Again, I would say that there are multiple resources online, both on YouTube and the Cato knowledge base and the Cato website on specifically on safe TLS inspection. So I think more information can be found about that. So I hope that answered the question.
Absolutely. And we actually have one more from Paul here that's kind of in the same vein, which is why I'm pulling it in here. And it's about how would the Gen AI examples that we used in our demo, how well would that work on Android devices? He's being told TLS inspection is needed to be enabled before CASB, and it won't work on Android devices, which that's an interesting twist. I'd like to hear this.
Yeah, that is correct. Today, most of Android devices by default, they apply certificate pinning. So it's in most cases, it's impossible to TLS inspect those, and hence you won't be able to get that level of control with CASB. But there are some exceptions, and to those exceptions, Cato allows to override those bypass rules and force inspect Android devices were applicable, right? So on one hand, Cato bypasses Android where certificate pinning is applied, and that's the vast majority of cases. But on the other one, Cato provides that level of flexibility to override those bypasses and force inspect where due. Okay, so we're available.
Okay. Fantastic. All right. Jason Vieira asked, we're getting off of the TLS inspection, kind of get into another one. These are great questions, by the way, everyone. Really appreciate it. Very detailed. So if the user is leveraging the ZTNA STP client, is there any notification to the user that they are trying to access or upload data that isn't allowed by policy? With the inline DLP, it appears the user simply sees that the transaction failed without insights into what went wrong.
Yeah, so if I understand the question correctly, and the Cato ZTNA client is enabled and installed on the account, on the device, sorry, yes, the Cato client notification should pop up. I would say that it is from a specific client version, which, to be honest, I don't remember which specifically that is, but that should be the case, as you saw in my demo earlier today. The Cato client pops up for both application control and data control rules. So a policy violation should be met, and with the detailed information on what went wrong.
Okay, yeah. So maybe it's just a version out or something there. Let's see here. Khalid was asking, the examples that you were showing were great, the Gen AI examples. I'm wondering if there was any documentation around best practices so that when they want to do this in their own environment.
So the answer is yes. We have some best practices within the knowledge base article for those capabilities, but I'd like to say that we didn't talk about it as part of the roadmap. But one thing that we're heavily pushing these days is a predefined policy templates that would be that would go through the Cato management application. And the logic is that we want to bring those example and best practices directly to the platform. So you won't have to go through the different resources and directly apply them from the platform. So this is what we're focusing on today, in addition to everything that we've discussed. And those use cases are going definitely to be part of that enhancement. Yes, it's coming.
Okay. Man, there are so many questions on here. I did not even realize, y'all, we don't have enough time to cover all these. So I do have let's see here. Shiraz, we may just need to follow up with you on the side. That's getting a little specific into what's going on. Now, here's a good one because it's a vision question, and I'd love to hear your take on this. What's your vision regarding the future of CASB approach, heavily relying on TLSI? Years and years after years, we see that man in the middle is used by CASB features as more and more complex to manage with HTTP3, DOH, TLS 1.3, cert pinning. These are kind of technical mechanisms which make the long-term vision of CASB unclear to keep a support on user device world. So I guess I kind of see that as with all of this that we have to do to be able to get that vision, kind of where are things going? Like, are we going to have to keep dealing with this, or is AI going to be able to help us out? I guess with the security, because I get their point there, right? It's important to have the security, but man, it really makes it tough to know you're secure.
Correct. So it's a great question. Actually, it's not a simple question to answer, but I think it ties back to another question that I saw in the chat about the recent AIM security acquisition and how Cato is going to tackle AI security in general. So when we're kind of envisioning or looking at the future of CASB and SaaS application and their adoption. So first of all, we're seeing more and more SaaS applications being introduced. Some of them are purpose-built. Some of them are heavily integrated and relying on agentic communication. Needless to say about how MCPs are going to reshuffle this entire landscape. That's an interesting one to keep an eye on. But specifically looking into that, we see that although all of these challenges that was brought up in the question, while those are true, we still see that those applications essentially are, for the time being, that they're adhering with the current standards. I'll give an actual concrete example. When ChatGPT was launched, for a period of time, they only supported HTTP2, TLS 1.3, and some vendors could not inspect that given the fact that it simply was not supported. Most vendors block Quick and GQuick to properly operate. But essentially, they I don't want to say that they kind of they simply went back and aligned with the standards. So then they allow now to fall back and degrade to the TLS 1.2 and allow vendors to inspect that traffic by blocking Quick and GQuick. So I understand the concerns, but to me, I think it's more interesting to keep an eye and look at how agentic AI is going to take much more prominent place in that landscape. MCPs are going to shift the way we use applications. So I'll keep an eye on that. I think this is where everything's going. And that's the reason Cato acquired AIM Security, to tackle that landscape as well. And yeah, I hope
All right.
I was able to answer both questions.
Yeah, no, that was really great. Because it is things are changing so quickly now, right? What we knew yesterday isn't really true today, and it's all getting through that. So with that, you know what, everyone, I think those were great questions. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Give everybody some time back a little bit. We all could use 5 minutes to just breathe. So that brings us to the end of today's session. Thank you for spending this time with us. We know your schedules are full, and we appreciate the engagement throughout. We've seen why SaaS and Gen AI adoptions create new blind spots, how TLS inspection plays that critical role in enabling CASB, and most importantly, how Cato helps you move from visibility to real control without adding complexity. For those of you who want to go deeper, we'll follow up with resources and options based on your poll responses, whether it's demo, guided workshop, or a Cato Labs session. On behalf of myself, Iran, and the rest of the Cato team, thank you again for joining us. We look forward to helping you take the next steps with CASB in your environment. Thank you very much. Everyone, have a great day.
Bye bye.